Our apologies for the lateness. Some of us actually work and try to make it on time. Hey, Jordy, before we start, let me see that. Jordan Rosenthal, she's with the NYP team.
Yeah, hi.
Hey,
Uh,
how's it going? How could you're,
I'm actually the presenter today, but my link wasn't working when I was emailing
okay,
it.
I'll promote
Like
Nick.
when I did the Zoom, thank you.
All right. Should be starting within the next, I would say, 5 minutes as we all begin to settle in and start getting ready for the meeting. So I want to welcome everybody, and we'll be starting promptly. We'll be starting at 6:40.
A monthly pot that we all kick into and then distribute amongst organizations. Um, people, we're working on an endowment, but our endowment is not where we have like $10 million as invested, and then we live in J4J operates off the interest. So we've been digging in all these places because the day is going to come when philanthropy is going to be like we done, and it's a legit it's a I think
It's Anisha, ¿cómo está, mami? How you doing?
that bravery.
Hey y'all, I'm okay. How y'all?
Good, good. Just we're starting in 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Quorum. Welcome to our April meeting. I want to welcome everybody. As far as chair reports, well, before we go into that, we got to look at the agenda. Does anybody want to do any modifications to the agenda? Is there anything missing in the agenda? So as you can see, we have the welcoming remarks, the approval of agenda, elected official updates. So today there's gonna be conversations around what are their budget priorities, and looking for ways to be able to effectively advocate for some stuff that has come to the board. For instance, remember that there was a mother that came here 2 meetings ago to talk about the lack of Horizon and I forgot the other program for that's meant to support kids with autism.
Horizon, Nest programs.
Correct,
For
correct.
strictly, yes, for strictly children with autism, Chair.
Yeah, so we have families advocating for that. So we understand last year, the mayor did cuts to special education programs. So I think this committee has to come out with a resolution asking for why are some of our families having to commute to the Bronx to be able to take advantage of these programs and seeing how we could work with our councilwoman to find a solution to this. So we're gonna be discussing that. I believe we're gonna have city, state reps. Then our community connections, we're gonna welcome New York Presbyterian Youth Program. They're gonna speak about some of the programmings and what's currently happening in that sphere. Then we have committee business, which we'll be talking with Jordan Rosenthal, Director of Advocacy, Crisis Intervention Today Coalition, and also Ariana Rodriguez, Bravo Camp NYC, which is a kids fest, a sleepaway camp. And then we'll get into old business, new business announcements and adjournment. So that's the agenda for today. As far as welcoming remarks, welcome. My name is Domingo Estevez. I'm the Chair of Youth and Education. I'm also here with Madame. Introduce yourself. Tanisha. She's probably in a meeting.
You want to say click on the other one so you can see.
Oh, okay, we
The
were,
one that has two at least, so it's a highlight when people talk.
which one do we put? Gallery? Okay, Tanisha, introduce yourself, please.
Hey, everybody, I'm Tanisha Grant. I am Vice Chair of the Youth and Education Committee, which I love. And I'm also second Vice Chair of the Community Board. Hello.
And then we'll go around the table so everybody could introduce themselves. Sorry, to my left.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darly Cornel. This is my first time in the community board, so first year. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Senorita.
Hello, my name is Noemi Diaz. I am first a mom in the community. I was born and raised here, and now I serve here in the community.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Woodley. This is my first year as well on the movie. I'm happy to serve.
Yeah.
Also live in the community.
So, as far as reports, Tanisha, I don't know if you want to report about last month. I was out of the state last month, so I wasn't able to join the meeting. But Tanisha, any reports from last month? I know we had a resolution in there, I believe. What happened with that resolution, Madam Chair? Talk to me. Tanisha's reading resolutions. Hey, T. Just talk about last month and what passed through the general board meeting.
Well, Chair, you know what? Yeah, so last month, so a couple of months ago, we had Chief on the Chief Coalition, and that's Coalition for Equitable Education Funding, which is a coalition made up of over 100 orgs, community-based orgs, education orgs that came together and are fighting for upgrades to Foundation A formula. So out of that meeting, we decided that we wanted to write a resolution in support of some changes to the financial to the
Formula.
formula. And we drafted that resolution last month and it got passed at last month unanimously
in the
at last
general meeting.
month. Yeah, well, Chair, you could have said it yourself.
No,
it
but
passed,
it felt wrong because I wasn't here last month. You spearheaded that, so it felt
It's
wrong.
passed. And not only did it pass, but we're also going to send it out to, our fellow community boards and ask them to write a resolution of the same matter and pass it too. So yay.
And besides that, like, we're in the final stretch before the summer break. I know we have some pending, interest meetings that you're gonna be, facilitating, that you're gonna be chairing. I know that starting now, I'll be working with Noemi closely so we could do our mental health forum at George Washington campus before the summer break. But besides that, I know some of us have dates. I know we have the workforce development. Crystal, I think you were trying to figure it out, or you weren't here for that one, where we're basically taking a month and identify what we're interested on, and we're chairing a meeting based on that. So, workers development, she wanted to do mental health for Mental Health Month, youth forum. So we'll be doing that. But something you could think about for when we come back from the break, just so you could get some experience chairing meetings. And like I was telling my colleagues, I'm not trying to be here too long. I'm not trying to be a chair for 20 years. So I encourage everybody to really get the skill set so we can keep passing the torch. You know what I mean? So besides that, can I get a motion if nobody has any recommendations for the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda. So
Second.
okay, Tanisha seconds. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? All right, cool. So we have elected official updates. So if there's any elected official representatives, please raise your hand so we could and you're representing?
Assemblymember De Los Santos.
Okay, we have Manny De Los Santos representative here. And we will begin with you. You have 5 minutes.
Good. And,
However you feel comfortable, boss.
so good afternoon, and thank you to the chair and the vice chair for this opportunity to address you. The assembly member is working on several critical budget priorities for the district that involve education and the youth. Specifically in the areas of language access and literacy. Assemblymember De Los Santos has been a champion for language equity for a long time. Over 2.5 million New Yorkers have limited English proficiency, and it's more than time that our state met that reality. He supports passing the Language Access Expansion Act, Assembly Act 4875, and investing $10 million in building language services statewide. This would include community interpreter funds, worker-owned cooperatives, and resources for the Office of Language Access, ensuring that our communities can navigate housing, healthcare, education, and legal services. He's also pushing for $25 million to the Office of Children and Family Services to fund early literacy programs, partnering clinics and CBOs with experts to support families from birth. Programs like Link and Reach Out and Read are already doing this work and must be scaled up. In the areas of education equity and support services, Assemblymember De Los Santos continues to push for a fairer foundation aid formula, not one tied to the federal poverty line that fails to reflect New York's true cost of living.
Correct.
He supports adjusting the formula for regional cost indexes, temporary housing needs, foster care needs, English language learners, 3K, pre-K, and students with disabilities up to the age of 22.
And I don't mean to interrupt,
Please.
but that's basically what our resolution was asking for.
Yes.
With a little bit more, but yeah.
And additionally, he supports expanding teacher centers, providing social workers in every public school, and a $100 million investment in community schools with additional support for after-school activities, summer learning, and literacy training. And in the areas of youth development and support, the member has been responding to the many issues impacting the youth of this district. He's convened a coalition of youth organizers and community organizations to consider many of these pressing issues, including a vital lack of representation in spaces dedicated to youth development. A number of youth conferences have resulted from this convening, including events coming up in May and June, and in the future, September, October area, and more continue to be planned. To learn more about these conferences, we ask that you please reach out to the member's chief of staff, Diana Pichardo, at pichardod@nyassembly.gov, or email the member directly at delosantosm@nyassembly.gov. The member is really looking to bring together local organizations with the Office of Children and Family Services to bring more resources to the district, and is looking for as much community support as possible in making this case. We've reached out to the chair and the vice chair, and will continue to be in communication with you throughout this process.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so, that's something that we were like really pushing for this year, like a dialogue to make sure that as we enter the season of budget negotiations, we also understand what is being negotiated, we're tired of hearing what's being cut and how to support that process. But if we could develop, strengthen, and gain some cohesion on making sure that we're not always being reactionary, and we've been trying to do that this year with the amount of resolutions we're passing and really demonstrating what we choose to support. Questions?
Well, if I can specifically address that, to that end, we would like to invite representatives from this committee to participate in the next convening of our youth
Yes,
coalition as
we,
well.
Diana invited.
Okay, great.
Any questions?
I do, yeah. So I'm gonna make this question for, all of our elected officials. Where do they see civic seal readiness and civic seal biliteracy in our district?
Sorry, what was the program?
So, civic seal
seal.
readiness,
Oh.
which is, centered in community service, and civic seal biliteracy. So how do we see that in our district, and how are we willing to support?
I can't speak to that specific question at this moment, but I
Yeah.
can note it, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible with an answer on that. And are you talking in terms of like expanding the program, expanding funding?
Yeah.
Like,
All of the above.
Yeah. Or what do they know about it? Where they see it
Yeah.
going?
Is there a conversation? Can we
Actively
start
doing-
one? I think that there's a lot of advocacy in our district, and we want our elected officials to be right there with our youth. So just advocating for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And same for all the elected officials, what are the priority in terms of employment, training, and education that you boss in this case is considering for the next budget season, and how is the money distributed?
So in terms of priorities for was it employment?
Youth, employment, and education. What are those priorities, and how is the money distributed?
Well, you're saying for next cycle, as opposed to this cycle?
Well, this cycle is over, we are negotiating for the budget, and how is that incorporated within the budget that is currently under negotiation?
Well, in terms of the employment part, I know that he's working for additional funding and support for after-school programs, and, so I would include, I believe, and I'll get back to you whether that includes like SYP specific or specific youth employment, questions.
But the youth employment question has to be beyond the summer youth program. We are looking for, are any of the elected officials supporting private organization or public organization that will really create opportunity for youth to have a real impact into the skill that they get to prepare for employment after school, just the first employment.
Are we talking post, high school, post-college, vocational, all of the
Everything
above?
that covers the summer youth program, but just beyond that, because it's not enough, and the skills that in some instances, the opportunities that are offered don't really create a pathway for better employment opportunity after.
They're looking for something essentially wraparound services regarding like.
Doesn't,
Is
it
there,
could be, but it's
possible to
also,
maybe even do a pipeline? Like direct to hire, if you work with the youth internship wise, maybe like a learn to earn, a pipeline program, so that they're guaranteed a certain amount of spots when they're ready to enter the workforce.
and is there money to, implement things like that? The issue with youth employment is that sometimes it's something that is a dead end in terms of this is the summer, these are the 2 skills, if any, that you get, and then the next year you go back to the same thing or something similar. rather than using it as a stepping stone to really acquire lifelong skills that will pave the way for better, more sustainable employment for the youth that participate.
I can get back to you on what the plan is for implementing something more substantial and more, long-term with an idea of, potentially feeding back into a pipeline. If there is a spot, there is room for something like that. I can't speak to that
Yeah.
just
I
yet,
can
but
understand.
Because a lot of it has to do with, when we say career, because we know the city, DYCD already operates certain models. But thinking beyond it, it's also like, working for a CBO, you always come with the need to be able to do have youth for summer camps, just youth beyond the summer youth kids, because they're more, supplementary, to what's going on at the camps, but youth that have that expertise, let's say, working all year round in an after-school program. And there's some sort of database now that as a CBO, I could reach out to the city or the state to be like, hey, look, these kids are currently unemployed or they have that level of experience that we're looking for. Something like that, because we got to step beyond just like this normal way of processing youth employment, which is, we hire them for 8 weeks and it's enough but yet we want to talk about mental health and all of these issues. And it's like, yeah, but we're limiting a lot of supports that we could give them to just summer months, or out of 100,000 kids, only 500 work during the whole year, something. But it's just things to think about as we engage in dialogue on areas that we could collaborate and garner more community support around the particular area when it comes to youth development. It's just it's not bashing, or it's just some recommendations that we could water them and keep supporting the assemblymen on being able to put something forth,
absolutely.
I know you had a question.
Yes, and my question is, concerning civic education. So there's legislation in Albany, sponsored by State Senator Robert Jackson in the State Senate, and Assemblywoman Joanne Simon in the Assembly. And the legislation mandates civic education for every student in grades 5 through 12 in New York State. But specifically, what was known in some places as an Action Civics Agenda, where the students themselves, come up with issues of prime importance to them, and then develop a civic education understanding, based around issues that actually affect them. So it's, I believe it's been in the agenda in the state legislature for 2 or 3 years now. But we're hoping that Senator Santos will sign on to the Assembly legislation. It currently has 25 co-sponsors, in the Assembly, and that he helped Ms. Simon, generate some more visibility to the bill, so we could push it. Obviously, that wouldn't happen this session, but in the next session.
Put it to them and see what they do.
And you tell him Al is lifelong pain in the neck, pushing on stuff like this, brought it up.
Absolutely.
And we invited everybody today, so we want to thank the elected officials that joined us, because we were looking to probe, ask more questions to Senator Jackson around, he has a civic engagement, bill.
Yeah.
So we were looking to learn more. So we'll keep reaching out. We'll send a letter to him to see if he could join us eventually. Any other questions before we move on? Carmen is having issues with the link, so we're sending it to her now. Councilwoman De La Rose is having some issues with the link. So we sending her the link now. We sent that. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to keeping the dialogue and look forward to the responses to some of the questions that committee members asked. Thank you so much. So now we're moving on, any elected official reps in here? I know Carmen, Councilwoman De La Rosa is joining us, but she's having issues with her link. But she should be with us shortly. Yeah. So, all right, so as we try to figure
Yeah,
out,
she's struggling to get on. Can we resend the link?
yes, we sent
did,
it.
yeah.
So as we figure this out, give me 1 second. As we figure it out, got it? Thank you, Noemi. You read, you sent it to me.
Yeah.
There she goes. Hello, Madam. Hello, Councilwoman De La Rosa.
Hello, sorry I'm late. I was having some issues with the Zoom link. I apologize.
Welcome. We want technology, right? We got to deal with the pains of it too.
I know, that's true.
Basically, we're engaging elected officials in a conversation around, this is budget season, around some priorities, budget priorities they have with, particularly in youth and education. So take it on, Councilwoman.
All right. Well, thank you all, first of all, for the opportunity and for your leadership at Community Board 12 on behalf of the youth of our committee and our children. It's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, youth and education are two priorities for me. It have been a priority not only this year for the budget fight, but since we started our term at the council. I believe that our young people deserve the best from early childhood education through college and beyond. And we're working towards those goals every single day. From our office, some of you have already joined, but we have been working on co-governance initiatives that include the youth at the table, because I believe that they must be part of the conversation and part of the decision making as well. We're proud and we want to thank Noemi specifically for her leadership in helping us with participatory budgeting, in which we have made sure that our young people are actually leading the fight for equitable budgets. And many of you who have showed up at City Hall, who have rallied, who have made sure that budgets reflect that priority. I'm not gonna lie, it has been a difficult budget process. Every single year, we're dancing this dance with a mayor that we do not want to dance with. Is a mayor that is choosing to continue to cut education from the first budget we passed at the council up until even last year, to then come around and restore piecemeal, piece by piece, parts of the budget that have been cut. You know, there is a dire financial reality happening right now in the city, which is the drying up and the possible loss of federal funds. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the city of New York still has one of the largest budgets in the nation, and that our education budget, secured through state dollars as well, should be protected and should be prioritized. So when it comes to the education budget, we have been working to make sure that things like special education are prioritized. We're also trying to fight for paraprofessionals within our school communities. Some of the lowest paid staff members in the DOE are paraprofessionals, mostly women of color, hold those jobs. And those women are critical in order for our special education needs to be met within the school community. In addition to that, we are using our platform and our budget to engage the youth in advocating for themselves, as I said, through participatory budgeting, through civic engagement, encouraging them to also come to City Hall, visit us, talk to council members. I've hosted a few of the schools down in City Hall, and through our own discretionary funding, we're trying to put the pieces back where the budgets have been cut. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we're fighting for right now. In terms of investments in K through 12, community schools continue to be a priority. There's a $14 million ask on the table right now that we're hoping to get through in this budget to facilitate things like wraparound service and after school. You know, it is shameful that not every school in the district or across the city has access to after school programming for our children. Schools literally have to do magic with the budgets that are given to them in order to close the gaps that are lacking in after school. Restorative justice, it's been a fight to keep the word restorative justice in the vocabulary and in the budget, to shift away from punitive discipline and build supportive school environments. So there's a $12 million ask for that. Mental health has been a priority of mine since my days in the state assembly and continues to be in the council. We're looking to make sure that the mental health of our children is prioritized. And in that vein, we have been supporting nonprofit organizations that are doing that work within the schools, including Community Life and others that are doing peer-to-peer supports. The situation with our immigrant families, right? From ensuring that they have housing to ensuring that there's food in the refrigerators for these families, making sure that that they're at the center of the care that we do. You know, I know that a lot of you that are involved in the schools uptown have lived that model, have worked in those models, from opening food pantries like I know Domingo has done and Noemi, to ensuring that our kids like Tanisha, it's in her heart, right, have the technology that they need in order to succeed. Our immigrant students can't be left behind. You know, today we at the council passed a resolution to ensure that we could sue the administration for bringing ICE into Rikers Island, which is, you know, an executive order that we believe the mayor is illegally pushing forward to erode the provisions within the sanctuary city laws. And so we're in a big fight right now for our immigrant communities. And within the schools, we're also seeing that fight, from ensuring that our kids have language access to ensuring that, you know, there are plans in place for those children that come from mixed status homes, just in case their parents are deported. Unfortunately, that is a reality that we're dealing with. We have been working in the early childhood field. I'm also the chair of the Women's Caucus, and making sure that we realize the promise of universal childcare has been the bulk of the work that we're doing. You know, making sure that 3K programs across the city are restored and are of high quality. So there's an $112 million ask for that. You know, in our own district, we have 3K centers that are sitting empty. I'm in the process of working with the DOE to also make sure that those centers, like the center at the Eliza, are actually filled, because the need is there in our community. And then this year we've been working with a coalition of parents and advocates for the expansion of 2K and the earliest childhood education possible. There is the infrastructure needs that exist for that community. We also in our district have a lot of childcare providers, at-home childcare providers. So we want to make sure that those workers are also in the conversation when we talk about the expansion of 2K. Again, extended day slots are something that we've had to work a lot for and continue to fight the mayor on ensuring that those exist. And then there's also the 25 million that we've been fighting for Promise NYC, which is childcare for children, regardless of immigration status as well. And then, of course, we can't forget on the other side of the spectrum, our higher education needs. So for CUNY, I've been working very closely with the PSC to make sure, one, that the contracts that are negotiated for CUNY staff and faculty are fair. The faculty and staff at CUNY carry with them the responsibility of educating all New Yorkers who are looking to enter higher education. But we know that the students that are going into CUNYs are students that otherwise would probably not have access to quality higher education. And so making sure that CUNY is restored, there's on $100 million that we're asking for to restore CUNY funding and reverse some budget cuts. 13 million for academic advisors and 1 million for CUNY MetroCards pilot to make sure that people are able to get to school. That's in addition to the work that the council has already been doing, like CUNY Reconnect, which allows students who have been disconnected from higher education to re-enter CUNY and sort of wipe out some of the debt that they carry with them. Sometimes people can't re-register for college because they owe money from when they either dropped out some classes or had an interruption in their education. And me personally, we've been working with CUNY on a civil service pilot. And the reason that this is important is because when we think about our children and we think about our young adults, how do we connect them to the workforce? That has been something that is a priority for me as the chair of the Civil Service and Labor Committee. Some children, some young adults are gonna go in to, traditional professions, medicine, lawyers, those educators. But there are some children and some young people that look to go into the trades, look to have partnerships with unions. And so connecting people to those pathways for apprenticeships, pathways to civil service, to make sure that if they want to enter city government, there's a path for them. Just today, the council passed my bill, which would, for the first time in the history of our city, waive the fee for civil service exams for high school students who are looking to enter civil service. So now it's free. It is unimaginable for us to ask young people that are looking to get their first, jobs in the city to enter civil service, especially when we have such a high vacancy rate, to ask them to pay from $40 to $100 to take an exam before they even have the test. That is a barrier for the lowest, most marginalized communities. And so today the council passed my bill. We hope that it gets signed into law so that any student, private, public, charter school, any student in the city of New York, a high school student, if you're enrolled in a high school or you're enrolled in a college program, you can take the civil service exam for free and get on a list to be called for a city job. And so that is sort of in a nutshell, a lot of the work that we've been focused on. I have to say that none of this is possible without the advocates, the parents in our community that have kept me accountable. I always talk about the first budget when I came into the council. It was a very difficult budget. We were facing the cliff, the financial cliff coming off the pandemic, and we lost a lot of funding for our education and for K through 12 education. And it was a lot of you on this call and a lot of the parents in the community that held me accountable for taking that budget vote. And since then, we've been working with a coalition of parents in the community to make sure that when they say this is what's in the budget, I'm going to the schools, I'm double checking, I'm saying, what's in your Galaxy? What's in your account? What does it say? To just make sure that the data that we're receiving is accurate when it comes to the impact that is felt on the ground. Because we know sometimes policies are made in chambers where we're looking to do good, but the least amount of harm is not good enough for our children. So how do we hold our children's education harmless when it comes to budget cuts? Obviously, there is mayoral control in the city of New York. We're working with our partners in Albany to make sure that things like the class size mandates are able to be implemented. We're working with our new superintendent, Nelson Martinez, in District 6, who, as thus far has been wonderful to work with, has an open door policy, and has been really focused on families. And I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation when it comes to education, youth, and our children. There's one area that I didn't talk too much about, but it's the arts. I think we can't talk about youth without talking about the arts, without talking about sports and recreation. And I want to say that one of the perks of being a council member is that we get to fund recreational projects within our parks. I think they're very much connected to our young people and what our young people like to experience in our open spaces. I'm excited about what the next year's budget has in store for us, but funding our parks and making sure that we're bringing our parks and our open spaces back up to the level where our basketball courts are renewed, our playgrounds are in working order, is something that I have prioritized as well in my time in the council. And of course, funding Reso A projects within the school to make sure that the capital improvements within the school buildings are also done, because we know a lot of our school buildings are 100 years old, and they need that TLC from us. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you and my partners and Community Board 12 to address the needs of our children and our young people in the community. There's also anti-violence work that is happening and is being funded. But I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councilwoman. My biggest thing is, as a product of CUNY, I always say CUNY should be free. If the boomers took advantage of it for free, so should everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my thing, you know, as a
I agree with you. We're working
Proud-
towards a free CUNY.
as a proud son of CUNY. We're gonna open it up to questions. Thank you so much. A lot of it actually aligns with a lot of the resolutions we passed when it comes to class sizes, you know. We'll engage in a conversation around, we did with the Assembly members representative here around the new formula for students. But now we're opening it up to questions if y'all have any questions. Good, she nailed it.
You know?
I guess I'm gonna ask the same question, which is, the civic seal of readiness and the civic seal of biliteracy. I think that by your service with the participatory budget, you checked both things off, and I want to commend you for that, and allowing the students to take the initiative to say what they can do with $1 million. Like, that's
And even if
amazing.
we have to pass the resolution, I do feel that participatory budget should be focused on education, you know, because of
It's a
the,
wonderful
what I've
opportunity.
seen with participatory budget in this district, being able to have the youth themselves identify what they want, get the votes for what they want, really creates like that. When we talk about civic engagement, what better way to tell them like, yo, where you want this money invested in, you know? So I think that speaks a lot to it.
Yeah. And I have to say, some of the ideas that they come up with are creative. It are things that I've never heard of. You know, 2 years, I think it was last year's budget, you know, there was a big push to create like a deli within the school. You should have heard those conversations. It was amazing. The principals were losing their minds. But those are the type of things that our kids are worried about, right? Like where do I go to buy my snacks? Why do I have to leave the school?
They made it happen this year.
Okay, there you
In
go.
the 4th floor, yes.
Yeah.
So let's ask the same question. Hi, Carmen, Al Carlin's here.
Hiya.
So, the question I have is this legislation, that was introduced in Albany by State Senator Robert Jackson and also State Assemblywoman, Joanne Simon, which mandate, civics education for every student in New York State, beginning in grade 5 and continuing through graduation of grade 12.
Mhm.
With the proviso that the civic education would not just be a lecture format, but be action civics, where the students are organized and engaged in identifying issues of importance to them, and then learning how to engage with city and state governments in order to get changes passed at the state level. So my ask to you would be, as I've done in the past with other issues, to see if we can get a New York City Council resolution of support for seeing that passed.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Just a quick fact. So my first job in government was working for Assemblymember O'Donnell on the Upper West Side in 2007. And one of the first bills that I drafted with him was a bill to make civics education mandatory in New York State. So I'm 100% on board. That was 20 years ago because I'm getting old. And we're happy to bring a resolution to the council. I think all I would need from you, Al, is the bill numbers, and we're happy to get that drafted.
Who should I send that to when you're staff?
You could give it to Tanisha and she can I can get it from her or anybody on the committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions?
I have a question, comment,
Yes.
and sorry if I missed it, because I'm multitasking. The reparations hearing is right now. That's neither here nor there. And so if I missed it, I'm sorry, but we're having a serious issue. I know you talked about ICE being in Rikers Island, but the other serious issue that we're having that I know and me and Noemi, we share the same concerns about our children in this community that are not going to school because they're either scared that they're coming for them or that they're coming from for their parents. So I know we have the Know Your Rights training, but I have to say that it doesn't really do much when at the end of the day, we say the police, we ask this on the public safety hearing to the police. And when the police say, well, if they have a warrant, there's nothing that we can do. And we know that they are, unlawfully kidnapping people. So has your office been talking about, because, at this point, we're doing all kinds of things to distract them, from messing with our kids. And it's affecting, their ability to go to school and learn.
Yeah. The bad news is that it's going to get worse. This mayor has blatantly sold himself out to the Trump administration, and their interest in their agenda in the city is to dismantle sanctuary cities. And that is just facts. And it's shameful to say the least. But two things I will say. One is that we are working on legislation. So I'm working with a bill drafter to draft legislation to reinforce that schools are sanctuary locations in New York City, regardless of sanctuary policies or not, that schools be protected. So we're working on legislation on that. There's some state preemption that we're working through, but soon we hope to be able to introduce that legislation. So one, we got to fix the policies, right? We got to make sure that the laws reflect the reality of today. And so we're working on that legislatively. But it is true that if there is a judicial warrant, if you are in a location that is, even if you're in a school or a location that is a sanctuary, they are supposed to enforce the judicial warrant. To my knowledge, there's nothing in the city law that we can do to change that. But one thing that I will say is that we need to make sure that we're working with the chancellor's office, which we've been in communication with, the superintendent's office, which we were in communication with. I have to say that Renzo Martinez, that was one of the first conversations I had with him about immigrant students in our schools, so that we're on the same page about what to do if it does occur. And so obviously my go-to is to get a list of, and I think we blasted out to schools a list of legal services providers in our city that are willing to pick up a phone call from a school if something is happening, is getting the schools the tools that they need, that if something is happening at the moment, they have someone that can pick up the phone. So one thing that would be helpful to partner with you all on is, since a lot of you have those partnerships in the school, if there's our specific concerns, maybe we can do a closed door roundtable with some of the schools to talk about, what are some of their legal concerns, so that we can better prepare in the case that if anything does occur in one of our schools.
Yeah, our thing is, Carmen, and I'm raising back a few parents that attended our meeting a few months ago to speak on the Nest and Horizon programs, which are meant to support students in the spectrum. And what their concern was that they have to go to school in the Bronx because there's no programs up here, or there's very limited programs in school. So I know that when they were doing the hearing for the health thing at the federal level, the things that was brought up was the statistic, which in these times, you can't really spread fake news, but according to some of the senators in that hearing was that 1 in 10 people now in the United States are diagnosed with autism. You know what I'm saying? So understanding that there is a need, how come our community lacks the resources to be able to address it, to the point where now our families are having to go to the Bronx to be able to take advantage of these services. So one thing that I would like to do, and we're gonna potentially pass a resolution, I'll work with the committee to figure it out, is why don't we have more Nest and Horizon programs in our community to be able to address the need that our students have? You know, so that's just something that we would love to work with you on and see how we can get the DOE on board.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, we should also have a conversation about resources, because if it's a resource question, then we should, you know, have that conversation.
Well, Nest and Horizon are the resources, you know, they just bring in additional resources so that schools could be able to have, like, let's say, more paras or
Okay.
more support staff to be able to support students with special needs.
Okay.
And
Happy
that
to,
are certified, exactly, not just a random individual working with a kid that has a need, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, happy to do that.
Okay, any questions before we close out and move on? Thank you so much, Carmen, and we appreciate you for always staying present when we invite. Look forward to working closer together.
Thank you all
Right.
so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Have a good night. Be safe, everyone.
And now as we move on to the next, we have something called Community Connections. And that's basically where we identify a community resource and we invite representatives to be able to talk about what those resources are. So today we have for Community Connections, we have Isabel, Program Director for Youth in Community Health, which is part of the Division of Community and Population Health at New York Presbyterian. All right, welcome.
Would you like for me to stand? Would you like for me to sit?
However you're comfortable.
I'm
The
gonna
beauty
take a
about
paper
technology now is
Page.
they hear you, the owl's gonna catch you.
Like, so, while Annabelle's getting the screen up, it is a pleasure to be with you all this evening. My name is Isabel Elton. I am a program director in the Division of Community and Population Health at New York Presbyterian. And I like to say that I have the pleasure and I have the privilege of overseeing our work in youth development and adolescent programming. I'm sure many of you are aware that when we think about the work that the division does, we're a really large piece of the NYP pie. And it's comprised of two parts. Our ambulatory care network focuses on our clinics. Our community health side focuses on our community programs. But the beautiful thing about it is that together, we really are intending to heal and make sure that our community is happy and healthy and very, very safe. And we do so under the leadership of Dr. Dodie Meyer as our medical director, Andres Nieto Andy as our senior director, and with Davina Prabhu as our vice president. Next slide, please. So I'm going to draw your attention to the screen, and as you'll see, that is the mission for the work that we do in the division. But when we think about carrying out that work, we do so with the intention to aid and to educate and to advocate for our community members while we continue working to address health disparities throughout the communities that we very proudly serve. And we really kind of take this approach to really focus and allow for our patients to view us as their partners and their North Star. When thinking about accessing primary and acute care, we know that they can come to New York Presbyterian and we will go ahead and do what we can to provide exceptional patient care for them. Next slide, please. Now, the way that we do that takes many, many different shapes and ways. But when we focus on what we're doing, every 3 years, our hospital system is mandated by the IRS and the state to conduct a very rigorous and robust analysis of the communities that we are serving to ensure that we are addressing their needs. And through our community health needs assessment, that allows us to create a roadmap so that we can ensure that we are working on the metrics and the indicators that are identified through that assessment to create our community service plan. And as you can see that beautiful sphere right there, it has all of those lovely colors inside them, but each color really designates the areas of focus for us. And it covers everything from chronic disease. I know that my Carrie Jernigan in the division She's spoken to CB12 about the work that we're doing with food insecurity and healthy bodies and minds. Maternal and child health, my other colleague, Emma Hulse, she's addressed the board with regards to what we're doing in that domain. I have the pleasure and the privilege, as I've mentioned, to cover youth development, but we also have, tremendous strides in sexual and reproductive health, as well as behavioral and mental health. And we'll actually talk a little bit about how those all kind of coincide with one another within our domains. Next slide, please. So when we think about the work that we're doing with youth development, we like to really kind of take it with the approach of what we call the ABCs of youth development. We anchor our work with the letter A when we think about academic enrichment and support. We know, as we've just heard for the last few minutes from Carmen and even from Peter, that the success that children have within the classrooms really speaks to the success that they have outside, right? And so what we want to do with that letter A is we want to be able to ensure that we're providing them not only support to help them thrive in those classrooms, but support on the enrichment side so that we can continue to inspire that curiosity for learning, whether it be about keeping their communities healthy, whether it be about wanting to become the next generations of healthcare clinicians and public health advocates. If they dream it, we will help them make it happen inside those classrooms. And now, the B focuses on behavioral and mental health. Throughout the course of the last hour we've been together, that's been another recurring theme. How do we keep our young people healthy, not only mind, body, and soul? So in a moment, I'm going to share a little bit about an incredible program that we have. But within that program, we're so proud that we've been able to curate a model that helps us work with youth between the ages of 14 and 24 to help address their behavioral health needs. And it could be a need that has just stemmed from a recent trauma to more lifelong indicators. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we're so proud of that letter B in what we do. And lastly, we focus on career development, another recurring theme in tonight's tapestry, right? About how we work with our youth, because we know that if we have success in the classroom, if we're ensuring that they are mentally sound, we have a better chance of getting them into the workforce, like you were mentioning, with one, sustainability, but also ensuring that when they enter the workforce, they're able to do so to earn a livable wage with the intention of growing and continuing to inspire that curiosity, because with that curiosity, not only will it increase their jobs, their security, and their income, but it will also lend to them having healthier health outcomes and live longer lives. So that's the trifecta of where we really build our models on. And now with the next slide, we get to talk about how we do that. So the first program on the screen, I'm so proud of, is the Lang Youth Medical Program. This is a program that's been in existence for over 20 years. And it is a program that focuses on inspiring that next generation of healthcare and public health advocates. Since its creation in 2003, we have served over 255 youth. One that's actually my colleague who's actually overseeing the slide deck over there. She's a testimony of what this program does to really work with the youth in our communities. Of that 255, 98% of them have not only completed our program, but they've entered the college sort of pursuits to pursue not only 4-year degrees, but post-secondary degrees in the graduate studies. The program has graduated 7 MDs and 1 DO. We've gone ahead and graduated several that have gone into nursing. And for those that want to work in healthcare, but do it outside of the clinical setting, Annabelle, again, is a perfect example of that. Working in administration, really helping to heal the community. And what's beautiful about that is, as we hear from our senior leadership, everyone at NYP plays a role in patient-facing care. So we take great pride in that. And last but not least, when we think about the youth in this program, because they come to us in the 7th grade as young as 11 years old, and we see them through high school and beyond, when we think about that transition from middle to high school, 80% of them get into one of their top 3 high schools. And we're talking about high schools that are marquee level. We're talking about the Beacons. We're talking about the Bronx Science, the Stuyvesants. Schools that traditionally children from minority populations have lesser outcomes, we're making changes and we're hitting strides so that we can get them into those schools, while also recognizing that within their own backyard, there are wonderful institutions like the George Washington campus that will give them solid education to really set them up for success when we think about college. Next slide, please. Now, when we were talking about the beautiful letter B in behavioral health, this is the program I was talking about, the Uptown Hub. Another brilliant program that was created through a grant from the former district attorney's office, Cy Vance. Since 2017, this program has been working with youth between the ages of 14 and 24 to provide them a safe space where they can congregate to socialize, but to also go ahead and receive wraparound services that include academic support, pro-social, pro-justice, career development, and the icing on the cake, pardon the pun from this morning, is the fact that a third of them are actively engaged in receiving behavioral health services from an exceptional team of psychologists and psychiatrists for those that need medication in order to go through their healing journey when we think about behavioral health. Next slide, please. The youth market. Youth market is our solution to getting youth out into the community during the summer, and they get to play an integral part in advocating for healthy eating, food insecurity to, make sure that families are having access to food and to the quality produce that exists through regional farmers markets. When we think about the work that's being done through youth market, while we have them out in the community, one day a week is dedicated to really making sure that they are being properly educated so that, again, they can continue to voice that mission of the program, but they're also learning how they within themselves can think about how to make better decisions when they go to like a deli or bodega, right? 3 times out of the week, they are not only out there really carrying out that mission of educating and empowering, but they're also playing a very instrumental role in helping clean communities. I believe they actually worked with you in your garden project last year. So it's about really making them a part of the community. And when we think about community, while we're proud of the work that they do in Northern Manhattan, we've taken tremendous strides in ensuring that they're setting the tone in Brooklyn and in Queens and even Westchester. Next slide. Now we start to pivot a little bit into what we're doing within our school buildings, because we have a really impressive footprint within District 6 and even up in the Bronx when we think about the JFK campus. But the purposes of tonight, we're going to focus on Washington Heights and Inwood. So our Peers program is our youth ambassador program for the schools that have our school-based clinics. In those clinics, they're able to receive all sorts of assistance, whether it be a physical, whether it be behavioral health support, whether it be sexual reproductive health support. So these young adults since 2019, over 100 of them have gone out to work lockstep with our clinical staff and our health educators. They've conducted over 15 workshops throughout the community to continue to carry out that mission. And we've been able to see over 3,000 of them work in tandem to not only continue to push the mission of the importance of going to our school-based clinics, but also being able to carry out additional messages. So it's a more holistic approach. They work with peers throughout the community to focus on things like the importance of being smart and savvy with social media, the importance of sleep, healthy sleep habits. They do a beautiful campaign in November throughout the district where they focus on giving thanks for anything from being able to wake up to having a blanket to cover them when it's cold outside, to being able to have had swipe for their Metro card. So it's, again, really about thinking about what's meaningful to them by stripping away all of the nuances that come with being a teen in today's society. Next slide. This one I'm so proud of, because what I haven't shared with you is that before coming to NYP 5 years ago, I worked for the Department of Education, both in a classroom as a teacher, and then I flipped over to the administrative side. And for over 15 years since I came to New York City, I immediately saw a huge need to improve how we approach the high school admissions process in Washington Heights and Inwood by creating equity, and having our families not have to migrate downtown to learn about what schools are out there, what the schools are offering, and how they're going to support their students. So with the support of this individual right here, he challenged me to make this happen. And now going into our third year, we've been able to create the high school admissions fair for Northern Manhattan. We were able to start it the first year inside our Milstein Hospital, where we saw over 250 families. This last fall, we had over 800 families join us at Amistad Dual Language School. We had 30+ schools come and represent both at the specialized high school level, the charter school level, the independent school level, and again, our public schools. They came, they rallied. And from that, while it's hard to go ahead and track metrics for over 850 families, what I can tell you is of the high schoolers in our program, and our Lang program in particular, because of that high school fair, 85% of them got into one of their top 3 schools. And the families came back and said, thank you. Thank you for not having us go all the way down to the MLK campus. Thank you for helping us understand the high school admissions application process, which is an anomaly. And unless you have, you know, a PhD from MIT to understand that algorithm, no one knows how it works. So this right here is a passion project of mine, and I'm so immensely proud of it. Next slide, please. And this all is rounded out by what we're doing in those schools. We learned about peers, we learned about our high school fair, but more importantly, it's the connection that we're making for students to ensure that, one, they have accessibility to care, whether it be physical, mental, or otherwise. And we do so through our school-based health centers. We have 2 of them inside middle schools that are co-located with high schools. And then on the George Washington campus, we have a beautiful one. So, Noemi, I'm sure you're familiar with that. And I know Domingo is as well. In addition to that, we have Article 31 space because we are deeply committed to the behavioral and mental health needs of our students, young and older. So the blue boxes focus on every single school in our district where we have a psychologist or a member of our behavioral health team supporting those students, so that they can go ahead and learn and understand how to navigate life with the support of a clinician backing them all the way. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, and I open for questions.
It sounds great, and I'm not gonna lie to you. It's great, you know, but it's like some of us are actually heavily in this district, right? In the schools that traditionally don't get the high school fairs, you know, building up schools that prior to, like, were stigmatized, you know, like, hey, the parent engagement, this, that, and the third. George Washington alone is engaging probably, I would say anywhere from 600 to 700 parents a month in the various different schools combined, you know. So for me, it's like, you know, I would delve deeper into the numbers. So like a breakdown of what schools within the district, you know what I'm saying? Are these the schools that historically are already doing well, you know?
Actually, if we go back to the slide with the school-based support.
Yeah, because in the school-based support, PS 132 is one of them. They got a psychologist
They do.
inside.
So what I'd love to showcase is that when we think about Paula Habeni, Duke Ellington, 48, 187 is an exception. And I'll tell you right now, I'm being very candid, you know, that's actually the school where I closed out my tenure with the Department of Education. That's a thriving school. I think for them, I think it's great that they have an Article 31 space. But when I think about the other ones on this screen, I think about 143 in particular.
Yeah.
When I was with the DOE and I had to teach summer school, the things that I saw on that campus were terrifying. And I'm talking about being locked in a classroom with a kid who is dysregulated and barricaded himself. That's a school that is underperforming. So the fact that we have a school-based clinic in there and is doing that work, I think speaks to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'll use PS4 as another example, Duke Ellington School. That's a school that when we started receiving migrant families, they came to us and said, how can you help us? Andy, I'll never forget it. Andy, Doty, and I, we opened up the Wrangell Clinic after hours, and we went ahead and we vaccinated kids so that they could go to school. So the fact that we're doing school-based mental health in there is fantastic. Not on this screen, but we're also thinking about our Turn To program, which focuses on mental health supports for not only youth, but for their families through the introduction of sports, which I know is very near and dear to your
Yeah.
heart. Right, so we're capturing the school communities that are impacted by the lack of Title I funding, by the lack of, the lack of resources outside of Title I, whether they have administrators that are maybe, should have retired a while ago. They have teachers that are disengaged, they have parent coordinators that are there and won't go beyond what the DC 37 contract says. The fact that we're in there and we're doing that work, I'd like to think shows that we're kind of chiseling away at that stigma
Mhm.
so that we can be part of the change for the better in those schools, which impacts not only the kids, but the families as well.
But that's what I'm trying to get to, right? I know you got HIPAA, you got all of that. But it'd be interesting to see the breakdown of like how many kids in these schools are getting services, what type of services are they being provided? Because while it's great to have physical spaces within some of these institutions, the problem is, and you just stated it, some people are not gonna go the extra mile that should have, you know what I'm trying to say? So I work in a lot of these different buildings and I understand the difficulty of working within these buildings. And the biggest benefit that some of us have is that we are not from the building. So being inside the building sometimes presents the biggest obstacle to support the building, if you know what I'm trying to get to. So for me, that's one of my biggest things. When I see this is like great initiatives, but let's get the breakdowns of how many families, what type of services are they being provided? How many families have health insurance, how many families don't have health insurance. So for instance, I'll give an example, and I'm not going to name the school. We're having some difficulties because some of the families were taking too long to be able to provide their insurance. What happens when that happens? Next kid, right? Oh, no. Although this was, I'm talking about 2015, 2016. It was a new initiative. I came and I met with the school psychologist department. She spoke to me about the foundation money that New York Presbyterian has to be able to offset some of the costs that for services rendered to some of these kids. But again, right, it's because I'm a good troublemaker, I feel, right, that I even got to that. There are people that be like, oh, you don't have, okay, cool. This kid needs help too. You know what I'm saying? Wow, that kid just fell through the cracks, and that's the same kid that later on we're gonna have to deal with the bigger situation for. You know what I'm trying to say?
I welcome you to come and help us get those kids that you're talking about.
Oh, no, I'm talking about that specific situation. Oh, no, I got them, the month that.
I grew up in this community.
Yeah.
193 is the school I grew up in, right?
Yeah.
And I understand, my wife went to 115. So I get what you're talking about. We welcome
Mhm,
you to come and tell us how we can get more kids in there.
mhm,
We don't care what their insurance is. We don't care about whether they have insurance. We see everybody
mhm.
in our clinics.
Yeah,
So.
Not only that, and to piggyback off that, and again, I'll use 187 as the experience because we had Sweeney Oscar is in there. The beautiful thing about each one of the providers in those blue boxes in particular is that they really embed themselves in those school communities. And they are the first ones to go in and talk to the school counselors, the APs, the PCs, and say like, what are we doing? How are we going to change this? We have to be very protected because of HIPAA, but I'm sure we can put together some overall numbers for you.
yeah.
And we can share them out because I think that's important.
Because
And I
then the
think it's
problem
also
is
transparency.
to present it to the councilwoman is also like, a lot of these people have a workload cap, right? So the question is, how could we, you get what I'm trying to get to? Like, I've been around long enough that I also know they do 30 people a month, right? What happens when the service needed is for 60 people? Do we refer out? And you know how they get lost from A to B, a lot of people get lost in the middle, so any questions? I'm sorry, I don't want to take.
Yeah, I have a question. So I know that we presented all this information, and one question that I asked is how can we support with vaping that's happening currently right now through all of our high schools and middle schools?
Yeah.
And it's like one workshop is not gonna do
You're right.
one workshop for the parents is not gonna do. The alarms inside of the bathrooms, meh. Like, what's the next step? Because this is happening right now, at this present moment. And it's 60 to 150 a day that we're taking right at the entrance of the door. You know,
Mhm.
we're catching them, we're collecting them, and it's like, so then what now?
I think, I agree, one workshop is not enough, but I think again, like this is the opportunity to really build
Mhm.
community. And we continue to work on ensuring that our youngest members of our programming and their loved ones, that we're a unit. And so, while we cannot sadly be part of the solution of what's happening when they're inside the school building with
Mhm.
vaping, we do a great deal outside of it. We have a program that focused on smoking and vaping. Our clinicians inside the school-based health centers carry out that mission. Within the Lang Youth Medical Program, we spend a lot of time talking about vaping. Unfortunately, it is a pandemic within itself for these young people. And sadly, a lot of them are learning the hard way.
Mhm.
So again, it's building capacity, building those relationships, and doing what we can
Together.
together.
Mhm.
It's a partnership, it's a collaboration. And hopefully, knock on wood, one day we'll find the solution to that, but sadly, I don't think it is. Until we also start working with our community delis, these smoke shops that just keep, popping up and putting all sorts of like lascivious things out there that they shouldn't. That's the only way, so it's a partnership. It's gonna have to involve NYPD, our families, our school, our CD12 members, us to be part of that solution.
Yes, because one of the things that we're doing, well, this is not outside of CB12, but we're partnering up with the Office of Cannabis Management. They're gonna start doing a tour around vaping, so that's something. So like my biggest thing is like I know the great work that y'all do, like Andy's an OG up here, so he's been doing putting in work up here for years. But one of the biggest things is like, how could we basically keep drilling on some of the efforts, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I saw that y'all put 232 in the line program since 2003, right? That's 20 kids a year, right? 25, right? You could basically get 25 kids in one school. You know what I'm saying? So I know I had great conversations with Andy about like could we create these pipelines? We got a school for in George Washington campus that's the school for health and science careers, right? Why are we not creating a pipeline as we talk about these career readiness? We have a school already in the district for something like that, you know what I'm saying? And I've had these conversations with Andy, that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm all
Yeah, yeah.
But let me tell you, Andy and I are having those conversations about that very
Yeah,
school and actually
yeah.
that campus in general. We're not at a point where we can, talk about that openly, but trust me, and Andy knows, and he's probably tired of me saying it. I am so committed to this district. It's ridiculous and I
Yeah.
won't stop. I know it will be time for me to retire when I have been successful in reaching all 35 schools in this district and then I've left my mark on each one of them. And the George Washington campus is at the
I
very
look
top of
forward
that
to it
list.
because George Washington has been transformed over the work that some of us have been doing there for
Yeah.
years at this point, you know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
it's like when I saw some of the numbers and to be nice, I'm like, we get that probably in 2 weeks.
You don't need to be
what I'm
nice.
saying?
You,
You
listen.
know, like, yeah, so it's like,
For 6 years,
Yeah.
every Saturday and every.
oh, no, I'm not talking about the Lang specifically. I'm talking about like some of these programs and it's like, yeah, and yeah, endowment is wow. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You talk about New York Presbyterian, that's a behemoth within itself, right? So it's like, let's look for ways of collaborating. It takes a community, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, what we have seen is symptoms of fragmentation and like trying to do it in the institutional way. And what you get is a small portion of the number that of impact, right? Because it's like there's a lot of small, medium, big organizations up here that some of these numbers are like, hey, like, it's not enough for an organization, so for an entity so big, you know what I'm saying? And just to be completely honest.
Well,
you
you're
know,
coming to spend time with us in a couple of weeks. So
Yeah,
we can continue this conversation and I actually extend the invitation to everyone on
Oh,
this
no.
panel to be part of that
everybody here
conversation.
this panel this committee was constructed to make impact. We passed resolutions,
Carry it on.
which historically hasn't happened in the past. Like, the way we've done this committee, it's like we really and the board has really like reshaped itself and has a lot of people not only speaking to change, but are active participants in that process.
That's beautiful.
So for some of us, like, and I'm just being completely honest as I know how to
Please,
be,
ma'am, I welcome that.
it's like the numbers look cute, but the organization is too big for those small numbers. And that's just my personal
And again,
opinion.
We are working on that. We're not at a point where we can discuss that, but trust
Okay.
me, my position.
But
was
you get what I'm
created-
trying to say though, right?
My
It's
position
like-
was created recently.
Yeah.
So that we can increase those numbers.
And I look forward to
And I-
seeing the progress.
Absolutely.
But I know, Andy has done great work up
He
here,
has.
you know, not just within the youth component, but like the hospital itself, like when working with the community, like his work has spoken to itself about that, you know, so
Absolutely.
that's why I'm showing the respect I am right now, you know, like Julio's great too, and has always been, but I'll leave it at, like, let's be honest. This NYP is one of the big hitters for the small numbers. That's what I'm saying. That's like saying we're gonna bring in Aaron Judge for Soto. Like, you could keep Judge. I'm around with Soto. You know what I'm saying? So let's keep it.
I do have a question, and it's along the line of the number, kind of. What happens when, let's say, a high schooler leave the school? What kind of referral resources are available to them because they are no longer in the school that you are present? How do you support that?
For when they're receiving services
Mhm.
or, so if they leave the school,
Whether because they graduate, no, because they just left, but for whatever circumstance, let's assume the best of those circumstances is graduating.
yeah, so it all depends. And you'll have to forgive me. I cannot answer your question, you know, as thoughtfully as I'd like to because I'm not a clinician.
Yeah.
But I can certainly find the answer to that. I can work with Andy and we can report back to you on that question. What I will tell you is that, you know, we do try to refer as many of the youth as possible to become part of the Uptown Hub
Yeah.
so that there is that connection to that work. You know, I can speak, for example, to youth that have participated in the either the Lang program or the Peers program. And if they're actively receiving services through either their school for that or they're connected to the program in some way, we always try to make sure that they leave and they have a connection to a community-based organization. But in particular, if they're already receiving treatment in the school, we'll find that information for you and get back.
And also through our clinic system, you know, we have several practices throughout, northern Manhattan. The Young Men's Clinic is another
That's
clinic that a lot of those patients are referred to for continuing to see their care there. And the ambulatory care network, which is the primary care sites of the hospital.
And that's why it's so important to combat the stigma too. Like,
Right.
one of our summer participants was going through a tough time. And it was easier, like I was talking to Jay from the Uptown Hub, he gave me a number and you just text the number and you start the process of getting services. So I think a lot of it has to do with recruitment and actually like a huge campaign to combat the stigma, because our community is still very like mental health. I'm not crazy. You know what I'm saying? But like mental health could sometimes be a supportive factor to your growth. It's like, hey, nah, love, like you need somebody to talk to and you're protected on the hip, but they can't go and gossip about you to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's like how you present it to them. Like one of the participants from the summer was like, I'm going through this. I'm like, yo, Jay was like, yo, tell her to text this number and boom. Now she's in process to, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of it has to do, I think, with that, like constantly combating that stigma, because the services are already there. Now our job is to be like, all right, cool, take advantage of it.
Can I chime in, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, T.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for your presentation, but
Thank you.
hold on to your seat.
Yeah.
So this is my problem. I've raised 3 children in this community. My oldest is 30. She is a college graduate, and I've never heard of you. And that is a big problem for me. So if the community organizers, the community that's out in these streets, the community that's providing digital equity, the community that's, giving food giveaways and block parties, if we don't know that these resources are available for our children, that's a big disconnect. My second point is, if this is supposed to be a career-ready program, is that correct? Helping them get ready for careers in medicine or something like that, right?
Yeah.
For careers across the board.
Okay, great. So I was invited to the George Washington campus a couple of days ago for, I thought, a college and career fair. But when I got there, Chair, I have to admit I had to leave because it was more about the college than the career ready, right? So it was a whole bunch of people there for college. So it was really a college fair centered thing for the kids. So why aren't we having spaces where we are calling in programs like this? As strong as we are encouraging our kids to go to college, why aren't we encouraging our kids that there are other pathways that they can take also that leads to a career? I didn't see no trade schools there. I was the only one there that was a community organizer that does stuff, that's civic engagement. So, if we're planning programs like this, or if we have programs like this, we also need to have fairs that uplift these programs. And we also need to think about, if we have these programs and all of these things to help our kids, what's going on that is, like, this is not a big thing. What's the disconnect? I would also be talking about culturally relevant mentorships. We all come from different cultures and different times, and our kids, comprehension is a thing. So I'm looking forward to see how this goes in the future. But I think that we have to make career readiness, trade schools, just as available to our children as we try to push college down their throat.
Yeah.
I yield. Because I have a whole GED.
Yeah.
And I'm very successful. So very important. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's something, some of the relevance, like bringing back Carmen that she was speaking about with the Civics Academy and stuff like that. But I get what you're saying. So what happens is, in a lot of these schools is already like, we're working through a lot, so it's like, while the intention is there, you would assume that the understanding within school leaderships is there. So when you work within certain bureaucracies, you understand that there's already a hierarchy in there. So
Well, it's also the way, I think part of what has to change is the way high schools are funded. They get more money when graduates register in college, even if they don't ever step a single foot into their college. They don't get any money for participants who go to a trade. Even I work with a very successful pre-apprenticeship program for the building trade. I mean, our participant comes back, and I honestly say, I'm on the wrong business. I bought a home for my parents. Now I paid this for my parents. I got my first car and it's brand new. I'm like, just shush and go away. But it's really great to see them come back and do this. But when we go to the school to recruit, it's like, oh, no, we don't have enough students. Yes, you do, because not everyone wants or can go to college, not because of any skill, but just because that's not their calling, that's not the skill that they want to develop. And most of the principals and we work actually with the city school because it's, they understand if you are in a city school, it's because your kids are going in a different route. But when we go to any regular high school, nobody attend the presentations. And we understand the principal, they don't necessarily advertise that we are going to be there.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. So I think that, what Tanisha said is speak loud to it, that you go to a job fair at the high school, and then what you have is a bunch of colleges. But it's also, I think, as parent and community member, we have to demand that the funding of high school has to shift. It cannot be attached to the outcome of the participants because also personal situations change. It has to be attached to the you graduated from high school. That's your job.
Mhm. Yeah, but
That's a great point.
any questions? Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to
Yeah.
engaging in the conversation, but there's a lot of passionate people here.
I'm curious about your mark, Paola.
Yeah.
What is the mark that you want to leave?
Yeah, the mark that I want to leave is that everyone, every kiddo in this district knows that they have their own worth and that they should never let anyone tell them that they can't do otherwise.
Yeah. So, like for instance, Tanisha, she does a lot of work with parents in the district. And a lot of people usually forget about the southern part of the Heights, like this area. Oh, she makes sure y'all don't forget about it. You know what I'm saying? So like the way that this committee was put together is you have different people, different types of opinions, different types of lenses, perspectives, but everybody is actually working in that particular area. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about why CTE schools shouldn't be disregarded because they're a pipeline to apprentices, you got somebody right here who works with the unions and works with placing these individuals there. So I welcome y'all to come back. Julio's always, adamant about making sure that we learn about everything that NYP offers. Andy's an OG, so he knows, like, he's always like, well, how can we make this better? And it's a
No, let's
pleasure
make this
meeting,
better.
yeah.
Make this better,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
I
with
love
you, it's a pleasure meeting
you.
you, and I
Yeah.
like your optimism, and I look forward to seeing how that transpires.
Thank you. And we'll see you, I think, on the 29th.
Yeah.
That's great. We're gonna.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Thank
We're
you,
almost coming down
everyone.
to. So up next, we have committee business. Jordan, my apologies for us taking this long. But we have Jordan Rosenthal, Director of Advocacy at Crisis Intervention Today Coalition.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hold on, Jordan, can I introduce you? Wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, go for it.
So, I want to say that one of the things that Youth and Education Committee got together and wanted to work on at the start of the year was mental health and how our children and our youth mental health is being so damaged right now. So Jordan and her coalition is someone that we've been getting to know outside of, the board, but I did have her come on the Housing and Human Services Board. And so I asked her again, since, we're very concerned about our children's mental health, I asked Jordan to come present to us about some of the things that the coalition is doing to try to get more money in the budget to support our community and our youth. Thank you, Jordan, for being here.
Thanks, Tanisha. And I also presented to the Public Safety Committee, who, and this is Franklin, who helps everyone's mental health. He has, his own mental health stuff. He's the world's most anxious chihuahua you've ever met. Anyway, I'll just say a little bit about me and who I am and what I'm going to talk about. So my name is Jordan Rosenthal. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a lifelong New York State resident. I'll be very clear about that because I know if I say New York and then you guys realize I grew up on Long Island, I'd get chewed out. So, let's make that clear. But I have lived in Washington Heights also. And then I won the housing lottery, so I left. But anyway, point of this is I'm now I'm the director of advocacy at a place called Community Access, which is a supportive housing provider. And through that role, I'm also the lead organizer through my coalition, Correct Crisis Intervention Today. And I have a little presentation to share with all of you that also kind of just includes a little bit of both, just because you guys are the Youth and Education Committee. So I thought to do a little bit of, have your full needs met. So first up, I just wanted to say that on Saturday, May 17th at the Village East Cinema, we're hosting our annual Changing Minds Film Festival, which is a young filmmakers festival. And it's all films that young people under 24, I believe, have made. And they're all about mental health. And like I said, tickets are only $10. You can follow up through Changing Minds Young Filmmaker Festival. It's really cool. We bring the filmmakers in to have a Q&A, and it's just like a really special community building event. And I can send this PowerPoint out later so everyone has all the details. Second off, I just wanted to tell you also about at Community Access, we are a supportive housing provider primarily, but we also have support services. And one of them that's open to all community members, granted this is 18 years and older, is our Blueprint Supported Education Program, which is only one of 2 programs in the whole city. And it's actually located in Harlem, so it's not that far from Washington Heights and Inwood. And it basically helps people navigate the stress of school, figuring out, time management, or how to navigate FAFSA, or, I remember when I was in college and like the stress of like signing up for classes and like the anxiety that would induce and like having someone to talk to about that. And all of this brings me to kind of the next portion of my thing, which is about peers, which I know we're talked a little bit in the last presentation. And I'm also going to talk about it as a workforce development issue because I think that's really relevant as I've heard about the needs of this community from the meeting so far. So CCIT, we're known for our hashtag peers, not police. And what we are and what that's about is we're a coalition really working to transform how New York City responds to mental health 911 calls. And we advocate that these should not be responded to by police officers, but instead should be responded to by peers, people with their own lived mental health experience. And they would be trained, and this is where a workforce development comes in, because this is a workforce that kind of exists right now. There are peer specialists, but not peer specialists as de-escalation crisis counselors. And this could be a new thing where we could really train and develop people, and they could get staff lines through the city and get benefits like a pension and, health insurance. So it's a really big deal on a lot of different levels. So what is our proposal? Well, we want to basically embody best practices, which is influenced by this model called Cahoots, which was based out in Eugene, Oregon, which pairs a peer, again, a person with lived mental health experience, with an EMT. And we want these teams to operate 24/7, 365, and they would have a coordinated care system to follow up and lots of other different programs. But one of the most important things is that we would want it operated through 988, the dispatch system. And 988 is the kind of like crisis hotline now. If you called NYC Well, it would be 988. It's also run by the group Vibrant Emotional Health. But what is the current landscape? So the city has a program called Be Heard, the Behavioral Health Emergency Assistance Response Division, and it actually does operate in CB12, the whole district. But again, I doubt that a lot of people have ever heard of it because it's very limited in scope. It operates 7 days a week, but only 16 hours a day. And we know crises happen at all different times, so that's a big problem. And it does not operate in entire boroughs, but in rather select police precincts. But again, all of Washington Heights and Inwood are included, and they've been some of the early areas that were in this pilot as it's expanded. And it's a collaborative program run through OCMH, the Office of Community Mental Health, FDNY, NYPD, and the Department of Health, including Health and Hospitals. And part of why this is so important is because very often they like to be that Spider-Man meme where all the Spider-Mans are sitting in the circle pointing at each other when you ask them about data or any accountability. So just a quick some FAQs. basically what happens when Be Heard works. So they're in an FDNY branded vehicle. There's, lights, there are these uniforms, and you can't request a Be Heard team. You could say, someone's having a mental health crisis. I think they need Be Heard, and like maybe they'll get it, but it has nothing to do with your request. The key difference between Be Heard and Mobile Crisis is really having to do with how quickly people respond. Be Heard is an emergency response service, meaning it's supposed to happen as quickly as fire or police show up. So Mobile Crisis, which also has a youth platform, it could take up to 24 to 48 hours for people to come. This should happen in under 20 minutes. In fact, one of the other areas that we're looking to have better outcomes in, or push the city to have better outcomes in, is timeliness response. Be Heard is open for people ages 6 and up, and they will respond to 911 calls from schools. But again, you can't request it. It's totally up to the dispatcher, which is why it needs to be through 988 and not through 911. And lastly, they will not be deployed in violent situations or if a person is suicidal, which seems a little counterproductive. And I will tell you something right now, but I will give you my caveat that I think it has to do with the dispatch, and I'm not 100% sure. But I recently met with someone from the Commission on Racial Equity who used to work at the Office of Community Mental Health. And she said to me, Be Heard will never respond to a person in their home. And I said, why? And she said, well, a home has a kitchen and kitchens have knives and knives are weapons. And I said, I hear you on that. And that kind of does make sense because the algorithm that is used to dispatch Be Heard includes questions like, are there weapons? And depending on how a 911 operator interprets the information that's coming in, these things could be cast out automatically. Similarly, I could see a similar situation being argued about schools and scissors. Again, I'm not saying this necessarily happens all the time, but there are issues clearly with how this program operates. So this is just kind of a chart of our model versus the pilot and really what we're looking to change. And I kind of went over through all that. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of go through it very quickly. Basically, we want peers, we want it 24/7, we want community insight, we want transparency in data, we want follow-up, and we want partnership. This operates in the shadows. So few people actually get a Be Heard response, which is actually my next slide. So here on my left, we have a chart or a map, of the city and what areas get a Be Heard response. So again, it's not the whole city, but you can see Washington Heights and Inwood are included. But what's more interesting is this is the most publicly or the latest publicly available data. It is almost a year old at this point. And if you look at the fiscal year program 2024 data, it gets even more depressing. And this is part of why I think they're not giving out new data, because the outcomes are not great. And it has to do with being underfunded and other reasons. But if you see, there were about over 51,000 mental health calls in the whole pilot areas. Of that, only about 20,000 were eligible. Of that 20,000, about just under 15,000 had a Be Heard team go out and respond. Of that, again, half made patient contact and less than half of that gave a mental health assessment. So it's not really reaching that many people. Police are still responding to a majority of calls. In September, we finally had an oversight hearing, and in this hearing, these are some of the highlights that we found out. The city said that it operates in 31 out of the 77 police precincts, and they were going to shift to more flexible geographic boundaries about how EMS is dispatched. I don't know if that has happened yet. Again, they operate in the shadows. Then for hearing about training, 911 dispatchers only get 1 full day of mental health training. That's not enough to be like making these decisions and also relying on an algorithm. And lastly, again, they use an algorithm which assesses whether there's violence, weapons, or suicidal behavior. How can you be a mental health crisis response program if you won't respond to things with violence, weapons, or suicidal behavior? But I digress. So, what are we here for? Well, we're asking for $4.5 million to ensure competitive compensation to staff the city's mental health crisis response teams and specifically adding peers to Be Heard teams. And we've worked with the Progressive Caucus and have created this language, which is very similar and has been part of their Crisis to Care platform. And it's also been included in the city's preliminary budget response. But there is a nuance. They did not carve out specifically Be Heard. They just say for the city's crisis response programs, which means that we could get this and all of the people go to mobile crisis, which would be not useful. So we really need to push for this specific change. Also, the thing to know about the budget advocacy is that with this, there are other things that need money to like, change it. It's only a piece of the puzzle, as we talked about before. And our first piece is adding peers to those teams. And again, making sure that they are paid a livable wage that is also a competitive salary, because peer work is serious work and it's quite stressful. And we're asking people who have had their own mental health concerns to maybe put in situations that could be stressful, and making sure you have adequate financial compensation can aid in someone's wellness for, it being able to go to art classes or whatever you need to de-stress and relax. So what would we love from you all? Call your council member and who is already here and ask her to support the 4.5 million to add peers on Be Heard. We'd love to have Community Board 12 formally sign on to support the campaign or even the subcommittee. Really, again, I've talked to the other subcommittees and we would love to have everyone write a resolution in support of our proposal, how it relates to Be Heard. Happy to come to any other presentation. You invite me, I'll be there, or I'll send someone else, but we'll be there and we'll do the presentation. And then just share the word. So that's it. I feel like I just talked a mile a minute. I'm open for questions.
Tell you one thing, Jordan. Anything new is better than what's not working right now. So, there's this big dilemma on like, oh, you're talking about defund this, defund that. And it's like, no, we're not. We're talking about let's figure out how to properly invest money that obviously has not been working, because if the same pattern keeps happening and we expect a different result, I think we're crazier than the people expecting the stuff to change. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. No, I hear you. And I think also like with the budget and just kind of like understanding, like how this system works is like, we can have a really great idea, but if the city doesn't fund it in a way to succeed, it's going to fail. And I think that's an example of this program. It has a lot of potential, but because it hasn't, really invited the community for feedback, because it's not as culturally competent as it could be, because, it's not, it doesn't have peers and it has a bunch of, white social workers who look like me, right? Who'd like, I might be with it because I've done this work, but like, let's be real. And I say this all the time when I talk about AOT and Kendra's law, which is like forced hospitalization. A man who is homeless and probably Black on the corner of 34th Street, as good as my intentions may be, he's not going to want to connect with me, right? right? Like and we need mental health systems and all different types of systems where people can connect with others. And I'll just say really quickly and give a little trigger warning with this story, but like when I first started my career, I met a woman who was unhoused and she had access to a shower, but she didn't use it. And, it was because she thought the smellier I am, the less likely I'll be assaulted. And I think about that every day because it seems so obvious. But the power of the peer is that the peer may know that without her having to say that because they have that lived experience of knowing what it's like to go through, crisis or being unsheltered or etc. And therefore, that person doesn't have to disclose their trauma and it's easier to bond and de-escalate. So it isn't that Be Heard is like, sucks and like is the end of the world, right? It's that there are just other ways that we can approach things to de-escalate situations that aid in someone's wellness and community wellness that aren't so institutional.
And are dignified, because
Yeah.
people could read right through the bullshit when you're trying to spoon feed me something because there's no other option. Questions?
No.
Yeah, I think this is something that we could potentially discuss a bit more. If a resolution needs to be drafted, is it time sensitive?
So, I mean, let's see where the budget goes, right? Like we're in
Jordan, the councilwoman was here. You could have been like, "Hey, councilwoman."
I know, I was trying to be like respectful, it's not my meeting. I will say I don't want to like toot my own horn, but like I have a really good lobbyist who helps me with meetings.
Okay.
I don't want to step on toes. But yeah, I mean, like, I will be honest. So the speaker and the finance chair put out their press release about the preliminary budget, and it had a whole section about mental health, and it had some really niche items too, like this EMS wellness group that's like $1 million. That's like a small thing, and it's kind of like, oh, why would that be there, right? But it didn't include the 4.5. So I really am concerned, and I think we need to do advocacy before the budget. And we're actually having a virtual lobby day. So even if the community board doesn't write a resolution, if people want to join the virtual lobby day, we're scheduling the meetings. We can just pop you in. That would be great.
Okay.
And like I said, I think the reason wasn't in that press release is it's the only one where it's consistent staff lines, and staff lines are harder to cut. And, there's pensions involved year after year. One thing I will say that's on our benefit, my coalition members might not like me for saying this, but the 4.5 and the ask that was crafted with the, Progressive Caucus includes more than just Be Heard. So when we are talking about negotiations with the budget, there's room for discussion.
Okay. Anybody have questions? Thank you so much, Jordan. I look forward to continuing this conversation. I'll talk to Tanisha to work with her on seeing like how we could develop a budget. A resolution for it, and then see how we could potentially have more time to discuss it in the executive meeting.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, and I'm just saying that because we currently don't have a draft. So
yeah, no worries.
It'd be too time consuming right now to work on something right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, we're putting on the lobby day, and I think if like we had people like from the subcommittee or the committee even, and you like were able to identify as like that, like I think that's impactful too. I think there are other ways where we can link people in. We're trying to write an op-ed, but like one thing that would be really interesting would be like, has anyone in your district ever had an interaction with one? A Be Heard thing? And if you haven't, writing an op-ed being like, this program originated in my district and I still haven't heard about it. Like, what is going on?
Yes, and I actually like had an experience at church, a landmark church at that, in this community. And, one of our parishioners' daughter had a mental, illness episode. And you want to know who came? Like 10 cops. And remember, I think we talked about this. And,
Yeah,
when
we
I
spoke at
asked
a
them,
rally.
like, where's the Be Heard people? Like, clearly, they was like, oh, no, we did a day's training. And, one of the police officers took me to the side and he was like, we don't have the resources. We just don't have the resources. And we stood out there for an hour before an ambulance came. And it was never no one from Be Heard that, came at all.
Yeah.
So the major problem I have with it, the major problem that I have with our elected officials, the major problem that I have with how they do things. Yeah, I'm here. The major problem that I have is that we seem to have elected officials, so-called leaders, because we use that term very loosely, who put into place laws and policies that are not equitable, that are not fully funded. And then we're here. If we're talking about education, if we're talking about real affordable housing, if we're talking about, and I really appreciate you, Jordan, what you said about how, being a white woman and a black homeless man is not going to identify with you, because we forget about culturally relevant and responsive care. Like we have a whole bunch of people who get a whole bunch of money in our communities that are white people to do programs for our children. Yeah, same wavelength. So when we talk about mental health services, when we talk about education for our children, when we talk about after school programs, when we talk about mentorships and career pathways, put some of our culture in it.
100%.
Amen.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it connects
So,
back to
Tanisha, if we're gonna present it during exec, we gotta draft something. So we'll talk about it.
Yes, I'm sure Jordan will help us work on something.
Well, we can figure it out.
Because not only do we pass resolutions here for the betterment of our community, our education, our youth, all of the things, we also going to start a new trend of sending it out to other bodies, like other community boards and CCs and other, violent PEPs. Everybody to stand with us, and pass it themselves so we can get some traction on some of the things that we see and we want for our community.
Yeah.
Are you guys at all connected with the People's Plan?
Not at this moment. I had never heard of it. But Jordan, we have another item in the agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Have a great rest of your meeting.
What we'll do is, Jordan, we'll offline this to be able to draft something to present to the executive committee, which is next week, which gives us enough time to work something out.
Awesome. Email me. We'll talk. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Tanisha. And thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And when you get a chance, enjoy the little red lighthouse for me and the Sisyphus Stones. I miss them.
Pleasure, Jordan. Next up, we have Ariana Rodriguez from Brave Camp NYC Kids Fest, which is a sleepaway camp. Ariana, are you here? Oh, yes, she's right here. Hold up, let me promote her. All right, Ariana, pleasure. Welcome.
Okay, I'm in. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It has been such a rich and engaging conversation. So much, so much in my brain. Lots to
Do you live in the district?
Do I live in the district? No, but I worked in the district for many years.
Okay.
With different CBOs.
That's enough. That's we'll take it.
Okay, great. So yes, I come from NYC Kids Fest. I'm the community and school liaison. So my job is to engage schools and other community-based organizations in sharing what we do, which is offer dance and theater workshops to during school hour times and after school hours. And so not only do we offer that opportunity, but we offer the opportunity of offering a free family event, usually Father's Day weekend. It's a 3-day event, June 13th, 14th, and 15th. I can drop that the website in the chat. Our on Sunday the 15th is the closest to Washington Heights, which is at Jackie Robinson Park. But our partnership with Brave Camp aligns with some of the same, we are in alignment with some of the same things that speak to the other panelists and what we shared about the youth and navigating mental health and, you know, growing into a civic leader or a person who produces in the community. So, and just so you know, I do need a little bit of time to have the people to introduce the folks from Brave Camp. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So some of the things that Brave Camp and NYC Kids Fest have in alignment is that we offer an experience that allows children and families to cope with stress, to navigate through challenging situations, and to develop self-assurance. So this gives our children and families the agency in choosing disciplines for our life, and becoming leaders, public advocates, and finally, being an engaging, confident, and wholesome person. That's what we want, right? I think just to tag on to the Be Heard panelists, I think that peer grouping sounds really good and relatable, especially with the high propensity of mental health that we have in this city and the States. So I feel like if we have these coping strategies and these interests that we could tap into, I think that mental health will kind of like level out. That's just my own personal thought. So Brave Camp offers the mindset of growth, discovery, and learning. And these three things offer so much fun. We partnered with Brave Camp last year, and it has been a truly wonderful experience. NYC Kids Fest partners with Brave Camp in identifying potential campers from around the city. And we are presenting to you today because we'd like to invite some of your community's children. Did I mention that I'm a Brave Camp parent? I have a 12-year-old, but she started last year as an 11-year-old. She has been talking my head off about it all year. I want to go back. I can't wait to go back. And I have some other positive highlights from other parents. I'll just share 3 really quick. So one says, we are excited for spring and summer. My 10-year-old absolutely loved her experience at Brave Camp, and I'm hoping her little sister will be able to join her this summer. One other parent says, I actually signed X-child up, so he is certainly going back. He is so excited to be returning because he made a lot of friends, and he really felt like he could be himself there. Third parent says, my daughter is going again this year, and we've been speaking to her friend about it and her mom. And with that said, I want to introduce our constituents at Brave Camp, Natalie, Jacob, and Ileana.
You want me to let them talk?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm not sure if you can hear me or see me.
Hold up, I'll promote you. Hold up. Give me a second. Yeah, I just promoted all of them.
I'm on. We're waiting for Jacob. Sorry, Natalie had to run out.
Jessica? Jessica too?
I'm speaking on Jessica's behalf.
Can we go 5 minutes?
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes.
Could we put up our deck? I think
Yes.
it'll be easier for them to see everything.
Yeah, of course.
Should be able to share it.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jake. I was a counselor last year for Brave Camp, and now I am helping with planning and the promotion of Brave Camp. So I'll make it quick. Welcome to Brave Camp. So what is Brave Camp? Thank you, Ariana, for that amazing introduction. So it's a week-long sleepaway summer camp. As mentioned, inspiring elementary and middle school students to embrace the inner strength and build their self-confidence, transforming them into the best version they can be both in school and in their personal lives. It's much more than just fun. It's about growth, discovery, and learning how to face life's challenges with a positive mindset. Whether that be navigating academic hurdles, personal challenges, or just everyday obstacles, Brave Camp encourages campers to understand that they have the power to overcome anything through bravery within them. So when is Brave Camp? It'll take place this year from August 16th to the 23rd. And it's a perfect end of summer experience that will set campers up to be successful and confident in the upcoming school year. Excuse me. So where is it? It'll be at Camp Eagle Hill in Elizaville, New York. We did Brave Camp here last year. Beautiful backdrop, amazing facilities. And you know, it's a great way to take the campers out of the city and put them in an environment that is serene, calming, and disconnect them from their daily distractions and immerse them more in this transformative experience. Oh, I'm sorry. So this program, every day, Brave Camp encompasses a theme based on our signature Brave Journey program. These themes are incorporated into the Brave Camp's fully immersive curriculum, symbolic exercises, creative expression workshops, and guided inner work. From activities such as meditation, vision mapping, daily journaling, and expression through music and art, campers will learn self-esteem, self-awareness, and individual bravery. These valuable lessons are necessary to tackle age-specific life challenges like bullying, peer pressure, self-expression, and other social issues that they may face in everyday life. So some of these activities, as well as the program that we have specific to Brave Camp, excuse me, are activities provided by the camp at Camp Eagle Hill. So swimming lessons, walking trails, rock climbing, kayaking, basketball, soccer, arts and crafts. Go-karting was a huge hit amongst the kids last year. Video and photography lessons and immersion experiences where they work alongside some of the photographers that Brave Camp brings. And instrument and guitar instruction that was a seriously big hit last year with one of our campers performing for the whole camp. And this is a map of Camp Eagle Hill, but I will move on for the sake of time. So here's some of the activities. As mentioned, go-karting, some handball courts, basketball courts, a bigger basketball gym. The pool, they have a lake too that the campers can swim in. There's swimming lessons as mentioned. There's kayaking lessons too. And an overview of the campground right there on the right. The cabins, I believe there's about 20 beds in the cabins. Counselors are sleeping in their own separate area just to keep an eye on the campers. Right next to a basketball court. So in the mornings, we'll go and hang out. We'll convene over there and play some basketball before all the daily activities get started. And just some additional photos of the dining area and a recreation hall where we held a party last year to kick off Brave Camp. We brought in some musical guests, RSNY, and yeah, it was just a great way for the campers to get to know each other and for them to kick off the camp. Lastly, why Brave Camp? Well, at Brave Camp, we believe that every child has the potential to be extraordinary. Camp is designed to provide a nurturing and supportive space where campers can build resilience, develop life skills, and make lifelong friendships. Through a combination of fun activities, inspiring lessons, self-reflection, Brave Camp helps kids tap into their inner strength and embrace their unique qualities. It isn't just about learning how to face challenges, it's about discovering the courage to take risks, building resilience to bounce back, developing confidence to step in the future with self-assurance. We want every camper to leave with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing they have what it takes to handle whatever life throws their way. So lastly, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask away. If not, I know that we're kind of pressed with time. So Ariana, if you don't mind sending everyone our email, and we can reach out and answer any questions through there.
Absolutely. I just want to mention, thank you, Jacob, for your presentation. I just want to mention that both these resources, Brave Camp and NYC Kids Fest, the festival from the 13th to the 15th, are free. I mean, they are available to the community. We are ready to get some kids in here and ready to, get some breaths of fresh air. So please, I dropped the links in the chat. I dropped my email in there. Any questions?
That's cool. That's what I was gonna ask.
How long is the camp? I'm sorry. I stepped away for a moment, so you probably already said that.
It's 1 week. The camp is 1 week, August 16th to the 23rd. That's the almost the last week of August, I guess the third week.
Great time.
So that's about 2 weeks before school starts.
Is there any requirement for kids to participate?
8 to 11 years old. That's the group of children that we're looking for.
But there is no income requirement, location or anything. Just sign in and first come, first serve.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, and if you have any further questions, look, we don't have any income requirements. I mean, we don't want to give a resource that is a cream of the crop to the richest kid on the block. That's not what we want to do. We want to give it to the families who can really use an enriching experience. So if we can highlight those families, that's who we want to give it to, but we're not going to discriminate anyone. And if we get an overwhelming response from people, we're going to have to create a wait list. Okay, I see someone put in their email.
That's my email. Just send it to me and I'll send it out to some principals.
Okay, wonderful. I will.
And if you could send me any like one pager with like the information in regards to like what are y'all what's the registration process, and just like everything you just said, I'd appreciate it.
One pager, you got it. Yeah, I mean, we live from Harlem. They leave from Harlem, they come back to Harlem. And I'm going to tell you this one piece of information. One child refused to get on the bus. Like, he got on the bus, he got off the bus. He got on the bus, he got off the bus, maybe like 4 times. This same child, when he came back and I picked my child up and some other children in like my little cohort, that child was just beaming with happiness. And like, yes, he was so happy to see his parents, but he was just like, oh my gosh, I had so much fun. And can I go again? Like, immediately as they got off the bus, I mean, these kids left, they came and departed as strangers, some as strangers, but they came back as family. You know, the counselors reached out to us. We had constant communication. They upload photos while you're there to see. You have an eye on what they're doing, what activities they're enjoying. You know, one personal friend of mine who sent her son, this was her first time sending her son, you know, out of her realm. You know, so she had a lot of anxiety. He had a lot of anxiety, but she also saw that he flourished. You know, he came into his own. And those are what we want. We want to offer our children these lifetime experiences and special moments to make them a greater person, to become a peer to another peer and be able to change lives. And I
Yeah.
think that Brave Camp does that.
I think the issue with camps is historically has always been like the limit entry point is because of finances. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, finances.
yeah, like people can't really. It's like either I pay my rent or I send my kid off to camp. Which
Yeah.
long
Not in
term-
this case. Not this year.
Send me that information and we'll send it
That
over
is
because I think I experienced camp in high school and I was like mind blown to that. Like,
Yeah.
I never understood
Okay.
what it was until you participate. But thank you so much. We're so on time because we always try to keep our meetings to like 2 hours and we're already above it. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining. Send the information over and we will make sure we share it with our community to see if we get support with participants.
Amazing.
Application is on the website. I think. They just shared the website on the chat.
Yeah, it's all there, but I will be glad to send the one pager and make some personal contacts so that we can, get some locked in families.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ariana.
Okay.
Gracias. And committee, we're on to any old business, new business announcements. Yeah,
I'll keep it short, because I know you're in overtime now.
yeah, we're trying to, it's a long
So
day.
basically, I'm coming on behalf of ACDP and the Uptown Youth Collective. They will be hosting, with the cooperation of Manny De Los Santos' office, what they call a Youth Leadership Summit, which will be on May 17th. To be held at the middle school and,
That Manny allowed for a flyer without his logo on it? How the people gonna know?
basically, it'll
Manny
be-
doesn't do anything while his logo being on it.
Liana.
So basically, each workshop from financial literacy to health.
Hi. I am so sorry. I had no idea we were gonna have to wait
Give me 1
hours and change. Oh my God. Be there.
Well, I mean, the good news, the good news is that
Yeah, each workshop at the summit will be led by an organization that specializes in that particular area, and we asked them to make each workshop experiential and participatory. So the young people end up sitting back and listening to some lecture about a topic.
All right, cool.
Engage in activity. And we'd love to have, a representative or representation from the youth committee.
Okay, cool.
To attend the summit, because we're looking for ways to be one of many summits. And maybe create a calendar over the next school year where we could have a succession of educational experience for the young people with the youth committee and CBOs cooperating with each other, to make it a full spectrum experience, throughout the school year.
Cool.
And
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Motion.
motion to what?
To adjourn.
Okay, second.
Yes.
Any
Second.
opposed, abstentions? Thank you. The meeting went longer, the meeting went longer than possible, right? But if we're gonna have, as you see,
Meaningful
it was.
conversation.
Yeah.
It takes time to do good work, and that's just the way it is, We
Yeah,
had a very full meeting and, resources and information, and that's the way it kind of should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
next time we're gonna have to order dinner.
This is the new Youth and Education Committee, all right?
All right,
I see y'all.
T. Yo, I'll call you about that